I'm really impressed at all the people that come out on a Saturday afternoon to participate in a process. Our organization, it's called NC Warren, stands for Waste Awareness and Reduction Network. My name is Jim Warren. People tend to think over the years that I named an organization after myself. I didn't. I've been there 19 years. We've been around for about 23 years. Background has been in toxic waste and hazardous waste and nuclear waste and nuclear watchdogging issues over the years. Over the past 10 years, our primary focus has increasingly become global climate change and the very important need for North Carolina to make a shift that is happening in a lot of other places toward a clean energy economy. I am impressed by folks coming out and getting involved in large part because our society has just not done very much of that over the years. People like you, many of whom I think are probably have been among the exceptions in our society, but the part of what we just heard from Nicole is, you know, we can get feeling defeated sometimes because the odds are against the public so much. There's so much corporate money that's involved in all of these topics we're talking about today. And the other common thread, I think, is there tends to be just a long history of calculated deception by an awful lot of big corporations that are you know, pulling a lot of strings. Not all of them. There are some that are better than others, but over the many years, it just seems to be that the amount of money going into the political system and the amount of money being spent on corporate PR that is not helping educate the public and get people really aware and involved of the issues and the choices that we face. And that's something that really has to change. We do work, NC Warren works with coalitions too. Today's the first day I've met Nicole, but we work with some of the other people at the North Carolina Justice Center. We're working with AARP, and we work with a number of environmental groups and consumer-based groups. North Carolina Fair Share is another one. We've worked a lot over the years with Democracy North Carolina. We need to be doing, all need to be doing more of that and connecting the threads. I do find that it's hopeful that this disengagement that I'm referring to is changing across this country. Everybody from the Tea Party folks to the Occupy movement, whether you agree with them on all different topics, I'm glad to see people caring and getting involved and you know, asserting their voice and working together. And gradually, I hope that more of each side will be coming together across the political spectrum as people realize that our needs are really, we have an awful lot in common. We have a lot more in common, whether you're in the Tea Party or the Occupy movement, than we have in conflict, I think. And the big part of that is this, you know, 1% and the money that's controlling our system and making such a mess of our economy and of our natural world. Now, I work with Progress Energy and Duke Energy, and I work against them a lot of times too. We are talking with these folks. Part of the track record of what's going on and what you folks in this area, I know, realize is you've got power rates over the years that are sky high. They've been traditionally a lot higher than the rest of the state, in large part because of mistakes that were made by utilities years ago and political people that they were able to talk into buying into their nuclear power plants, which turned into be a real mess. The key thing I want to tell you about today is the very real need for us to avoid repeating that serious mistake. Because over the last several years, many of you have seen around the state and around the southeast in particular, the same utilities who made those mistakes years ago have gotten real excited over the last several years at building more power plants. They want to build more natural gas plants. They want to build nuclear. They're building, Duke Energy's building coal. And they're doing that for one basic reason, two basic reasons. One is what they know how to do over the years, but the other one is how they make money. It's lucrative for them to build power plants if they can be sure that they complete the plants and that the public has to pay for them. Meanwhile, outside of the Southeast, there is a very important and measurable shift around the U.S. and around much of the world, including parts of the developing world, a shift away from fossil fuels and nuclear energy toward a clean energy future that involves solar power in a variety of forms, wind power, which is growing quite rapidly. It involves using energy much more wisely than we have been doing over the years, especially in the U.S. And it involves a number of other technologies, cogeneration and others, that work for our economy, and it works for a lot of utilities around the country too. In the Southeast, Duke and Progress, they're not there yet. They're conflicted about which way they're going to go. And they realize that the world is shifting toward a renewable energy future, and they realize also that global climate change is bearing down on us in a way that is harming a lot of people and harming our economies. And they realize that there's likely to be more and more public support for the clean energy direction and opposition against reliving and repeating this big mistake they made trying to build these power plants years ago. I'm going to give just a quick point about why it is so important that here in 2012 that we help make this transition. In part, it's because global warming and climate change, whether you agree with it or confused by it, or you're not certain about who's telling the truth or whatever, I can tell you, the scientific community around the world, the relevant scientists are overwhelmingly in consensus that this problem is on us. It is already harming and killing millions of people a year around the world. It's harming us in North Carolina. We've got now about 15 years running on and off droughts. We're having wildfires. We're having storms of all types that are exceeding what they had been before, and it's getting worse, and it's going to keep getting worse for a number of years no matter what we do now. And we simply have to make the transition beginning now toward a clean energy future that allows us to phase out coal-fired power plants, because they are the leading problem in the U.S. And we are in position to do that. The price of renewable technologies are coming down rapidly. The price of old coal and nuclear and even natural gas-fired power plants, to some extent, coal and nuclear especially, are going up rapidly, and they're not sure what, if anybody could ever complete building a new nuclear plant. They don't know what it's going to cost. The best estimates these days are about $8 to $10 billion apiece. So back to what's happening here in 2012. Some of you saw in the news last year that N.C. Warren and AARP and Justice Center and others worked together, and we blocked an effort by Duke Energy and Progress Energy to put a bill into the North Carolina legislature that would transfer even more of the risk of building new power plants onto the public. That's how bad, whether you agree that nuclear power is safe, or you think it's maybe safe enough we should try, or you're not concerned about it, I can tell you the economics of it just doesn't work. And you don't have to take my opinion for it. Wall Street won't gamble on it. And this has been widely reported that even the gamblers that some of those people are, they made clear several years ago, and they've continued to insist, they will not invest in new nuclear power projects unless states, and this is happening in the Southeast, unless the states force the public to take the financial risks. And this bill, with our coalition, we have a coalition called Consumers Against Rate Hikes, and I brought a a pre-final draft of a leaflet that's back there. It's not very pretty, but it's going to be finalized next week, and the content is very solid. We named, a year ago, we named it the Annual Rate Hikes Bill, because what these companies want, they not only want to be able to charge the customers years in advance before a new nuclear plant is even completed, they want to now, they want to shift it to where the legislature will allow them to come in every year and get an automatic rate hike without a full proceeding before the Utilities Commission, without them having to justify against our attorneys and others that they really are on track and can meet the regulations to build the plant. They want an automatic pass-through. And if they go in that direction, if they win on this bill, we really are going to be seeing annual rate hikes. Duke Energy in particular has already for the last 3 years been coming in for rate hikes. And some of you saw, and some of you may have been involved, where they were asking this year for a nearly 19% rate hike on residential customers. I know they're not covering your part of the state, but they are already at over 30% of what they're trying to raise our rates over the last 2 or 3 years, and it's only going to get worse. So I'm going to wind down for now, but we do have information there. I do encourage you not only to talk with your legislators here in this area, but think about who you know in other parts of the state. We are in particular working in Republican districts, working across the political spectrum, because this is not a left or right issue. Everybody's got a stake in whether we keep our economies from getting worse, and whether we keep our power bills and our power rates from skyrocketing even more. And so I encourage you to be thinking about folks that you may know in districts that where we do need to be reaching these Republican folks who are controlling the state legislature. And you know, finally, I'll just say, I know this can work. Between the groups that are here today and a lot of you folks have been involved over the years, the grassroots across this state have had lots of victories over the years. We know how to win some of these big fights. And you know, some of these that are going on now are the biggest ever. And so there are a lot of reasons to feel hopeful, and I think 2012 is, by the way, if we stop this bill in 2012, I really think the utilities are going to have to cut and go in the clean energy direction. And if they do that, it will allow us to begin phasing out coal, and especially because of how big these utilities are, if they stop trying to go in the wrong direction and move toward the clean energy economy, it's going to send positive shockwaves across this country and around the world, which is, I think, very important in terms of trying to help boost the direction that cuts greenhouse emissions and allows us to get past all this to a clean energy future. So, thank you.